Here is a buffalo somewhere in northeastern Thailand that has been dying for 15 years. It has cost foreign men, collectively, more money than most of them will ever calculate, because they each paid for it alone in private, convinced their situation was different. The buffalo gets sick, then the mother needs an operation, then the rice harvest fails. Then, the younger brother crashes the motorbike. The requests arrive one at a time, each one reasonable on its own, each one impossible to refuse without feeling like a heartless man, and that precisely is the design. I am John. I have lived in Thailand for 22 years and watched the same situations play out hundreds of times. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how the sick buffalo works, why it is almost never a single con but a slow structure built around your own decency, and how to tell the difference between a real family in real trouble and a system that has learned to read men like you for a living. Before we continue, please subscribe to my channel so you do not miss any future videos. Let me start with what the thing actually is, because most men get the shape of it wrong from the very first day. The sick buffalo is the affectionate, slightly bitter name expats give to the recurring family emergency, the steady stream of crises back in the village that require your financial help. It is called the buffalo because generations ago, the water buffalo was the single most valuable thing a rice farming family in Assam, the rural northeast, could own. If the buffalo died, the family genuinely could not work the land. So the dying buffalo became shorthand for the one emergency a good man could not ignore. Today, the buffalo is mostly metaphor. The crises have modernized. Hospital bills, school fees, a debt to a local lender, a roof that caved in during the rains. The animal changed, the structure did not. Here is the part men miss. The sick buffalo is not a single event. You are not going to get scammed once, lose $1,000, and learn your lesson. That would almost be merciful. What actually happens is that you enter a relationship, sometimes with a woman from a bar in Nana, sometimes with a perfectly ordinary woman you met on a dating app, who has never worked in nightlife a day in her life. And over a period of months, the requests begin. They start small. They are spaced out. They are always attached to something emotionally legitimate, and each one is calibrated, consciously or not, to land just under the threshold where you would push back. I want to be precise about something, because this channel is not in the business of telling you every Thai woman is running a con. She is usually not sitting there with a spreadsheet plotting your destruction. The truth is more uncomfortable than that and harder to defend against. In many cases, the requests are real. The mother's diabetes is real. The brother really did wreck the motorbike. What is being managed is not the existence of the problem, but your relationship to paying for it, the speed with which you reach for your wallet, the absence of any questions, the way you have quietly become the family's emergency fund without anyone ever saying the words out loud. That is the phenomenon. A real or semi-real stream of need flowing toward the one person in the picture who has dollars, structured so that refusing any single request feels cruel even when the total has become absurd. Now let me show you why it exists. Because once you understand the engine underneath it, you stop taking it personally and you start seeing it clearly. The first thing you have to understand is bun kun. This is one of the most important words in this entire video, so I want you to hold on to it. Bun kun is the debt a Thai person owes to those who have given them life and care, above all their parents. It is not a vague sentiment like Western gratitude. It is a sacred, lifelong obligation, and in rural families, it is heavily financial. A daughter who goes to the city and earns money is expected to send a meaningful share of at home. This is not greed and it is not weakness. It is the central moral fact of her life. A woman who fails to support her parents is, in her own eyes and in the eyes of her entire community, a bad person. So when she asks you for money for her family, understand what is actually happening. She is not necessarily trying to drain you. She is trying to be good, and you have become the means by which she can be good more easily than she ever could on her own. Layer onto that the raw economics. A woman from a village in Isan or the north might come from a household where the parents earn perhaps 8,000 baht a month between them. Call it $250 to $350. Farming rice and raising what they eat. You, the foreign man, casually spend more than that on a weekend in Thonglor without noticing. She knows this. Her family knows this. You are not being seen as a peer who occasionally helps out. You are being seen accurately as a different order of financial being, a man for whom 30,000 baht, about $850, is an inconvenience, while for them it is half a year of survival. The gap is so enormous that your refusal to share it reads, to them, as something close to a moral defect. Now add the third element, the one that makes the whole thing nearly invisible to a Western man, krengjai. Krengjai is the deep cultural reflex of not wanting to impose on others, of managing the person's feelings, even at cost to your own. It sounds gentle, and often it is. But it also means that the direct, blunt money conversation you keep waiting for is never going to happen. She will not sit you down and lay out the family budget and ask you to commit to a monthly figure. That would be a grotesque imposition. Instead, the need arrives obliquely, wrapped in emotion, at the moment of crisis, because crisis is the only socially acceptable channel through which a large request can travel. The sick buffalo exists, in part, because the culture forbids the honest conversation that would make the buffalo unnecessary. And there is one more layer, and this is where it tips from cultural reality into something you must protect yourself against. In certain corners of the economy, the bars of Soy Cowboy, the freelance scene around Nana and Sukhumvit, parts of Pattaya, these dynamics have been industrialized. There are women, and there are families who have done this with 30 foreign men before you. They know the rhythm. They know that the request must come after you are emotionally invested, never before. They know to start small. They know that a man who pays the first 5,000 baht without blinking will pay the 15th. In that world, there is even a word for what you are. They call you an ATM, a man valued primarily as a source of cash. The cruelty of it is that the genuine cultural obligation and the engineered extraction use exactly the same words, exactly the same tears, exactly the same dying buffalo. From the outside, on the day it happens, you cannot tell them apart. That is the whole problem. So that is the engine, a sacred obligation, a staggering wealth gap, a culture that forbids the honest ask, and in some cases, a practiced operator who has learned to ride all three. Let me show you now what this actually looks like as you are living it, because the theory is clean and the experience is anything but. Picture this. You are 3 months in. She is warm. She is attentive. She has never once asked you for anything. And you have noticed this, and you have congratulated yourself on it, because you read the forums before you came, and you were braced for the gold digger, and she is so clearly not that. Then one evening she is quiet. You ask what is wrong. She says it is nothing, my Penrai, never mind. You press. Finally, reluctantly, almost ashamed, she tells you her mother fell and is in the hospital in Udon Thani, and the family needs 20,000 baht for the treatment. And they do not have it, and she is so worried she cannot sleep. She does not ask you for the money. That is the masterstroke. She tells you about the problem and lets your own decency do the asking. You offer. She refuses twice, cringe again, and then accepts with tears of gratitude. You feel, in that moment, like the most important man in her world. And you were never asked for a single baht. That is the first one. Now watch the spacing. The next request will not come the following week. That would alarm you. It comes 6 weeks later, and it is smaller, almost trivial, so that the pattern never feels like a pattern. School fees for the niece, 4,000 baht, you barely register it, then a gap, then the motorbike, then a stretch of months where nothing happens at all, and you relax completely, and you tell your friends back home that the warnings were nonsense, that she has never asked you for anything serious, and you genuinely believe it because no single request was serious. It is the sum that is serious, and the sum is the one number nobody is keeping in front of you. I had a client a couple of years ago, an American, a retired engineer who had been careful his whole life, the kind of man who reconciled his own bank statements to the penny. He came to me having sent, and he had to add it up in front of me because he had never totaled it. Just over 1.4 million baht to his girlfriend's family in under 2 years. $40,000, not in one con. In 30-some installments, each one of which he could have justified to a judge. He was not a foolish man. He simply never once had the full number in front of him. Because the system is specifically built so that you never do. How many of you watching this have already seen some version of what I am describing? Either in your own life or in a friend who would not listen. Leave it in the comments. I read all of them. And it matters more than you think for other men to see they are not the only one. Now, let me talk about how men make this dramatically worse, because the mistakes are not random. They are the same handful of errors, repeated by intelligent men every single time. The first and biggest mistake is paying instantly. When the first request comes and you reach for your wallet within the hour, you have not demonstrated love. You have demonstrated your threshold. which is to say, you have shown that you do not have one. You have taught the system everything it needs to know about you in a single transaction. The amount you pay matters far less than the speed at which you pay it. A man who says, "Let me think about it and we will talk tomorrow," and a man who transfers the money before dinner are read as two completely different financial organisms, and the second one will receive requests, the first one never will. The second mistake is never, ever verifying anything, and worse, feeling that to verify would be an insult to her love. This is the trap that closes hardest on the good men. You think, if I ask to see the hospital bill, I am calling her a liar, I am being the suspicious cynical farang I swore I would never be. So you ask for nothing. But understand what you are actually doing. You are not protecting her dignity. You are removing the only feedback mechanism you have. A real family with a real sick mother has a real hospital, a real bill, a real ward you could in principle visit. The request to verify is not an accusation. It is the normal behavior of an adult who handles money responsibly. In a genuine situation survives it without difficulty. It is the manufactured situation that cannot. The third mistake is conflating the money with the relationship. Believing that paying is how you prove you are serious, and that refusing would end things. Here is what men get backwards. In the relationships that are real, your willingness to engage with the family's reality thoughtfully over time in a sustainable way strengthens things. In the relationships that are not real, your money is the relationship. It is the entire relationship. And the test of which one you are in is brutally simple, though almost no man is willing to run it. Stop paying, kindly and without anger, just once, and watch what happens to the warmth. If the affection survives a no, you may have something. If a single declined request collapses the entire connection within days, you were never the man. You were the ATM, and you have just been switched off. The fourth mistake is the one that locks men in for years: escalation through sunk cost. You have already sent so much that, to stop now, to question it now, would mean admitting that everything before it might have been a mistake. So you keep paying, not because the next request is more legitimate than the last, but because stopping would force you to look at the total. Some men send money for a decade rather than face that number. The buffalo does not even have to stay sick. By a certain point, your own pride is doing the work the buffalo used to do. So what do you actually do? Not be careful, that is useless. Here is the concrete operating system. First, institute a delay on every single financial request, no matter how small, no matter how urgent it sounds. The urgency is the manipulation, even when the need is real, because urgency exists precisely to prevent reflection. Your rule, stated to yourself before you ever board the plane, is that no money moves in under 24 hours. I love you and I want to help, and I will give you my answer tomorrow. A genuine family can wait a day. A real hospital does not turn away a patient because the foreign boyfriend needed to sleep on it. The delay costs you nothing, and it dismantles the entire mechanism because the system runs on speed. Second, keep the total. Open a note on your phone the day you start seeing someone and log every bot that flows toward her or her family, with the date and the reason, not to use against her for you. The single greatest weapon the sick buffalo has is that no one is holding the running sum. The day you can see the total at a glance is the day you become almost impossible to run this on, because every new request now lands against the full context instead of in isolation. Third, ask the normal questions a responsible adult asks about any large expense, calmly and without apology. Which hospital? How much in total? What happens after this payment? Can I help arrange it directly? You are not interrogating her. You are behaving like a man who handles serious money seriously, which is exactly what you should be. Watch the response more than the answer. Genuine need responds to careful questions with relief, because finally someone competent is engaged. Manufactured need responds to careful questions with hurt, anger, or a sudden change of subject, because questions are the one thing it cannot survive. Fourth, and this is the structural fix the smart men eventually arrive at. If you decide a relationship is real and you want to support her family, do it on your terms, as a decision, not theirs as a reaction. A fixed, modest, predictable monthly amount, agreed in a calm conversation, not extracted in a midnight crisis, is a completely different thing from the open-ended emergency tap. It removes the incentive to manufacture crises, because the money no longer flows through them. Many genuine relationships find real stability here, and the ones that resist it, that need the crises, that cannot tolerate a predictable number replacing the endless emergencies, They have just told you exactly what they are. Let me pull the thread all the way through now, because the sick buffalo is not really about a buffalo, or a hospital, or even about money. What the sick buffalo reveals is the gap between what you think you are buying and what is actually being sold. You think you are proving your love. You think you are being a good man, a generous man, the kind of partner who steps up when family is in trouble. And inside the right relationship, you are. But the system I have described does not care about your intentions at all. It cares only about your behavior, your speed, your silence, your refusal to verify, your inability to say no. It reads those behaviors with a precision that has nothing to do with your character and everything to do with patterns it has run hundreds of times before you arrived. The reason every foreigner falls for it is not that foreigners are stupid. It is that the trap is built out of your virtues, not your vices. Your decency is the bait. Your guilt is the hook. Your pride is what keeps you on the line. Here is the truth I want you to carry out of this video. The sick buffalo cannot survive an adult who keeps the total and waits a day. Everything else, the tears, the urgency, the village, the dying animal, is theater that only works in the dark, on a man who refuses to count and refuses to wait. And once you understand that, something shifts in how you read every interaction. You stop hearing each request as an isolated emergency, demanding an immediate verdict on your worth as a man, and you start hearing it as one data point in a pattern you are now tracking. You become calm, you become slow, you start asking the quiet questions, and the women and families for whom the relationship is real will barely notice the difference. Because real connection has no problem with a thoughtful man. The ones who needed you fast, silent, and unquestioning will feel the floor shift under them, and they will reveal themselves every time, the moment you stop playing the role they cast you in. Creating these videos takes real time alongside my consulting work, so if this was useful, please support the channel by subscribing. It tells the algorithm to show this to other men who need it. See you in the next video.